to play on the afternoon when we are counting down to receiving. Raymond, what's that very expensive looking, spectacle that you just put on your table?
My eye is also under austerity stress.
He has left the masses.
Completely.
So I'm being stressed. That's why my eye is under austerity stress.
This doesn't look like somebody. First of all, you have four gold-plated things around you. 2 gold-plated rings, 1 gold-plated watch, 1 gold-plated.
Old women are feeling uneasy. We started mentioning dry bones.
You're making reference to spectacle.
Yes.
Let's stay there.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about.
Yes. The people are hiding this.
You must not make reference to any other thing.
The masses are suffering. By the way, welcome to State of Play. I mean, you say you're waiting for the prospectus of the
Yes. The very final deal, that's basically how they determine. When they put everything together and tell you that this is like we had the December 6th one, we are waiting for the very final one. All the conversations they've had from the bank straight to the labor people and everybody, what is the final deal? That's what we're waiting for today. I've been trying to get it because I want to discuss it later on. And it's become a big problem getting it. We are told it will happen today. They'll release it today. We are told it will be over 50 pages or so. We are also told that it will be interesting anyway, but what we don't know is the actual details. Some things can change. This is the Republic of Ghana. I mean, last-minute engagements may, for example, we may hear that the thorny issue about individual bondholders has been resolved, whether I like it or not.
With a clear statement of exemption.
Yes, we may hear that. But we may also know that the pensions, when you mention pensions in this country, people go and hold meetings. Yeah. The labor people.
Yeah,
even if you mention
yesterday they held meetings.
Yeah,
and they should have.
Even if you mention pension, in fact, they don't want to hear you mention anything related to pension. Even if you mention that a minister is in charge of pensions, they'll go and hold meetings. They really are not taking chances at all. So maybe we'll get the clarity that that's also been taken out. We understand that it may not necessarily be so. We may have some. I mean, what we propose earlier on that go into a sector, let's say pensions, select some people. Isolate the people who are going on pensions in the next 2, 3, or 4 years. Then
maybe the rest in the next 10 years.
10 years, yes. Maybe within that. Then the rest may actually be affected. You can also move.
But you know what they've done?
No,
okay.
That's not. They haven't done. But you see, no, that's not what they did.
So the thing about pension,
all of them are on the table today.
Yes, so the thing about pension, I say all the time is that look, the truth is that at SNIT, and SNIT has actually been public with this. If I am going to go on retirement in say 15 years. Raymond is going to go on retirement in, say, 25 years. While I am on retirement, part of his contribution will be used to pay me.
Yeah, which is really high.
When you are going to go on retirement in 35 years, part of your payment will be used to pay Raymond. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that you can actually tell the pension funds or fund holders, for instance, hold to maturity. For these persons, hold to maturity. We believe that within the next few years, things would improve so that we can get back to normal. But we also believe, and then we can also pass a law, for instance, that says, do not invest a lot of your funds in government securities.
Yeah,
that is changing the current
legal regime. We say now you can actually invest in a lot of funds. Now, someone sent me, in one of the Scandinavian countries, their pension funds lost actually about $161 billion in 2022 only.
For doing what? What did you do?
Because they went into certain investments and the yields did not mature as they expected.
Wow.
But that's not the end of it, because these persons will bounce back. Okay? Mm. We know that we have pension funds being used in oil exploration, for instance. So how about we deciding that we're going to use our pension funds to reconstruct the motorway? Why is government always struggling? So you'd say, okay, we'll change the legal regime. You can engage in capital infrastructure and all of that. For instance, if it's roads we need, if it's going into housing, which you would build and sell it and make money, fine. There should be a way of going about this. The whole system of always saying we want to sit back, put all the money. So government, we collect monies from everybody, go and give it to government. Then government will spend on recurrent expenditure and give us interest.
I mean, the listening to you yesterday when we were talking to John Coman, I think it was bold that he even agreed to come and do the interview in the current climate. One thing that struck me when he kept on saying, oh, yeah, it's your sacrifice, you don't want other people to contribute so that you... And there was a question I think you asked about, when he was arguing about the tradability.
Yeah.
And he says that that's the problem, that now they have 80 to 90 they are hoping to subscribe. And then he's making the point that, so why do you want others to contribute so that they can pay those who don't sign on? And then you went for a break and came back, and I get the sense that majority of people who were listening, one of you guys asked the question, so what is his contribution?
Which was asked him.
Which was asked, yes. Right? And then the answer was so convoluted. I don't even notice. You asked the question.
Meandering into some long routes.
You know, and
come on.
Quantify your sacrifice. You know, and you know the thing that struck me, like, so each time he talked and said sacrifice, this is your sacrifice, everybody have to sacrifice. Like, is he listening to himself? You know, and I get a sense that many people who were listening would have been furious each time he said sacrifice. Each time he says sacrifice, would have been,
you see,
furious.
That's
just
the reality.
listening to him.
You see, that's the reality. I mean, the fact that government, and I put a very simple question when I came back and I said, look, you said you're going to cut down expenditure by 30%. You came back in July and said you had reduced expenditure, for instance, from 137 billion to 135 billion. And that's not 30% that we're talking about. Yeah. In fact, you said to us that between January to September, you expected to spend some 102 billion. And you spent 199 billion. Mm-hmm. That's 3 billion less than what you wanted to spend, for instance.
Still not 30.
So, still not a 30%. And so the problem really is where the sacrifice is. And when we ask that question, why do you want to take my money? When you are not showing me how you are sacrificing. Because look, if you want me to contribute towards the running of this country, if you say I should sacrifice, I tell you one thing, Evans. Look, we wouldn't have had this conversation if the president had reduced the size of government by, say, 40%. We wouldn't be having this conversation if the president directed, okay, for instance, he said, look, going forward, we will not even use the V8s again.
But they said that.
They said that.
Yeah. But they said, do we use the V8s in Accra?
They said that, please go to the ministries and go and find out whether the V8s are not there. I am saying we would have stopped this conversation. So the government said, we are going to use, all of us are going to use salon vehicles. In fact, when the president decided at a point in time that any minister that wants to follow him should come in a bus, we applauded him. If we had done that and had said, look, we're going to cut down our goods and services budget by this amount, and we come with a specific amount, not percentage, to say, oh, this percentage, because percentage, I mean, what really? And we have said, we're going to cut down our capital expenditure. Agenda 111 is on hold. I'm sorry, we can't do it. After all, we've gone around the country. We've seen what has happened. Once the government, if the government had done that, what you would see is that all of us would quickly come together and say, you know what? Let's support government. Because then government would have shown all of us that it is really concerned about our plight.
But the question that beats me is, it appears so obvious. Why hasn't the president done it? Why hasn't the government?
I mean,
why hasn't?
You've asked a very important question.
Because it's so obvious. It's not a low-hanging fruit. And another thing that also struck me, they went into a meeting with the Individual Bondholders Forum, set up technical committee. For days they talked.
Yeah.
And then that statement was signed jointly by both the finance ministry and they made proposals to how savings you can make more than 80 billion. When they were issuing that statement 2 days ago, there was not a single mention in that statement that even recognizes the work that had been done by that committee.
That's true.
And that said a lot
about that. And it's important. I actually felt when they issued the committee's report, it was strange. Do you know why? These people had proposed, prior to going to that meeting, some of these cuts. The report suggested that these are the proposals coming from the individual bondholders. Immediately I got worried. It didn't say that when we sat with them, we all agreed on these ones. Yeah. Then it actually tells us that government on this side, the people representing government, raised concerns about the immediate application or implementation of some of the proposals. By the long term, we want to consider some of them and look at the ones that can be immediately implemented. Then the conclusion is that we have given it to the finance minister to do what he wants to do with it. And I'm asking myself, the people brought the same proposal before the finance minister. He sets up a committee, obviously with a mandate to act on his behalf. But all that you do is now reproduce the proposal of the people, add a comment at the bottom. So for the one whole week, what on earth were you doing? What was your contribution? What dialogue required you to now reproduce that list that people had, just cost it, put monies to it, and now come and tell us that, oh, well, these are the things that the same people, they are saying. It was a complete waste of time. And why did you require 1 week to do that? A single meeting could have resolved those matters. In fact, the meeting that they decided to form the committee, because what I had in mind, maybe I misconstrued it. What I had in mind was that, oh, we know that people have difficulties, right? So let's all sit and agree on the way forward. This way forward was going to be adopted as a final way forward. But that's not what happened. It was almost like you're making suggestions. So your suggestions are being reproduced into a document. We tell you whether it can be implemented or cannot be implemented. Then we are going to give it to the finance minister to do the same thing. The man who's been told these same things like in the last God knows how long and has not acted on them. Some of them require even the executive president acting on it. The same man who has not seen any need to remove anybody because he has to cut costs will be the same man making the decision. That is how I realized it was not going to work. Check it. In the 2023 budget, all the things that government said were expenditure cuts. You check. They didn't put a single amount to it.
Yeah. And we still
But
don't know.
on the other side, how much, where they wanted to get money from where, they actually put a cost to it.
Yeah.
So they were so clear in their minds how the revenue were going to be gained and from which sectors were supposed to
When
get
it comes to their own cut.
Yes. No. We just spread a couple of things around.
Yesterday.
And if you ask that question till today, nobody can tell you
He
that.
asked that question.
Yeah.
The deputy finance minister still could not tell him how much their own cuts have saved us.
It tells you that they are just fanciful projections. If you mean business, you then consider that and you put into your final calculation whether it makes sense, whether it actually leads to 10%, 20%, or 40%. You will get to know that. But if you just raise general thinking that, oh, well,
but guys,
you park your car when you are going to, what they call it, a far away place, they can use the four-wheel drive. Those things, how do you quantify in ways that will now tell the people of this country that government this year is reducing the usual expenditure by almost 50 or 30%?
But are you guys really sure we have an economic crisis?
I mean, the economic crisis is only for the people.
Yes, thank you very much. That's
anybody who does not recognize this will not be knowing what's happening.
There's an economic crisis for the rest of us.
Yes.
And an economic boom for the political class.
Well, because the problem is this. The problem is this. Now, you budgeted payment of interest payments of 60 billion. You have suspended the interest payments. So that would no longer, if it succeeds, for instance, okay, but of course you've said this year you're going to pay 5%, so there'll be a certain percentage or 10% also. So some percentage will be paid. But the critical question then will be, what happens to that interest payments? Automatically it gives you a bit of space. What are you going to do with that space is the critical question. Okay? Now, if you tell all of us that you're going to suspend critical infrastructure and still increase your infrastructure, capital infrastructure budget by 11 billion Ghana cedis, the question is, have you suspended critical infrastructure? I mean, you may want to make the point that, oh, of course, these are inflation and everything. But the critical question is this. When you are in these times, you take decisions like you are in these times. The decisions you take should conform to the times in which we find ourselves.
Yeah.
So you stop capital expenditure. You say, guys, you know what? We can't do this.
And everybody will understand.
We will understand you. Look, I was telling Raymond the last time, I have not complained about the poor nature of my roads for a very long period because I am saying go and pay individual bondholders, exempt them. I am saying cut capital expenditure. And so because I have said cut capital expenditure,
I can't make that demand.
I can't make that demand because if I make that demand, I'll be a hypocrite. I am very quiet. Why? And I am thinking it is because of the benefits associated with procurement.
That's why it has to be done.
That's why it has to be done.
But there's also an election to be prosecuted
That's the
next year. You have an IMF program that will ensure you can. So you have to find other creative means of finding money for that.
Don't think so much about the election. Think about the future of the next generation.
No, but they are thinking about
I think that's what the president said, right? That he's a leader who is thinking about the next generation and the next election.
Yes.
Which was a very wonderful quote. I mean, it gives hope. But if your actions do not correspond with that particular quote, it sounds like there are two different things that you are dealing with here. When you say these things, do you know what their response? The economy will grind to a halt if government is not spending. It's the reason why they will not cut back, because they want to spend more so that the economy will continue running.
But is this economy running?
To the minds of people in government today, the reason why we cannot let things go is because government's a big spender. And if government stops spending, people will not get contracts. If government stops spending, people will not get their daily bread. And that will worsen the currency.
The key question we need to ask when you say that, when you say people, who are these people?
That's the most important one.
What category of people are we talking about?
And also,
the privilege.
It's an indirect admission that we have not grown the economy so well that it actually goes beyond government and its procurement plans. That's basically the admission. That government, being a very big spender, if government decides not to do a lot of procurement, the people that are actually supposed to be benefiting from all these procurements will not benefit from it. But you ask yourself, even a private family at home, if your resources reduce tremendously, what do? You cut back.
That's the first thing
you make very substantial. People would have enjoyed weekends and all of that, but they don't do it again because they are smart enough to realize that they don't have as much money and they will run into a ditch. The only difficulty is that we have a government that believes in spending and doesn't believe in a lot of accountability. If you believe in accountability and the people are saying that, listen, cut back, you will listen to them. Sometimes our democracy sounds like an awkward engagement. Ideally, you listen to the people to make your expenditure plans. When the people say that, no, cut back, you, the worker, ought to listen to your bosses. But this worker doesn't take any word from the bosses. Yeah, but this worker is consistently on the frolic of his own.
Have we allowed our employee, in this case, to do this? Have we also maybe complicit? You know,
I agree perfectly because part of the people, so half of the workers are basically aligned with the half of the employers are aligned with the employees in some ways that they do not think they are their masters. They actually feel that the employees are their masters. So you see how awkward it is.
Yeah.
To the extent that those people will never agree to anything that fellow owners say. They would always want to side with the workers. That is where the difficulty here. So in that part of the world, leadership is not serving anybody. Leadership is the Lord, and we are the serfs. We the ones who put them in place, ought to listen to them all the time. Your views, in all fairness, does not matter. Even if you think you have a critical group, because the people that constitute individual bondholders in the Republic, it should be very easy for them to get whatever they want in this country.
Why?
They are a very good bunch of wonderful brains.
They have not got what they want.
That's what the problem is. So they have come to realize that our politics is, okay, could you call it upside down politics? But yes, it's almost very strange. Because that group should be able to influence a lot of things. If for nothing at all, they have the competence, they have the numbers, they have the brains to actually engage properly. The things that government will be demanding, bring your alternative plan, they can bring it on the table.
Which they do.
Yes, all of those things are there. All that is left is that the fundamentals of our politics have made it impossible for the people to influence their leaders.
But you see, that's a big deal. That's the problem. Look, let me just put it this way. I mean, over the last few days, I've gotten some calls from, certain quarters in government that have said, hey, Joy FM, you people have done, now we're giving 10% and 15%.
We have done.
You've done this thing, but you see, that sends a sudden signal. When the people decide to take government on and say, no, we won't take this, we won't take that, particularly the middle class, things will change. Unfortunately, a lot of them went to sleep. In fact, the times that, until this bond issue affected them, they will call you.
I was coming to that. It's just like you read my mind.
Yeah, they call you and tell you, Then when it affected them, they started calling. You see the Ghanaian. So you have a situation where the middle class, and in every country, the middle class serves as the force that helps transform the economy and even their governance and democracy.
Yeah.
If they do not speak, that country would not work. Unfortunately, the Ghanaian middle class has always been very quiet.
Very comfortable zone.
Very comfortable because we're putting money in bonds and the bonds were yielding results. They didn't care. Things are going bad. It says, oh, it's okay. Until they hit them, they were never going to talk about the ills of this country. So look, when the man on the street starts talking, he's told, he doesn't have anything, called and sorted out nicely.
Yeah.
You can
he doesn't have the resources to participate in the conversation.
But when the CEO gets up and says, no, we can't take this.
Who is part of the middle or upper class?
Upper class says, no, we can't take this. In fact, all of us say, we cannot take this. All of a sudden, you will see government backing down on decisions. Look, when we said enough, e-levy in its current state was not the best, even in Parliament, even at the time e-levy, people kept quiet.
Yeah.
A lot of people kept quiet. This has shown us that there is a very powerful group in this country that is sleeping. Because, look, they also think, oh, when I speak, people insult me. But I think we've reached a stage where we must say, for the interest of the next generation and the unborn generation, I will speak. It doesn't matter if they insult me. After all, if Ghana is a better place, we would all enjoy it.
So you fear after this, they'll recoil into their...
They will.
Business as usual state?
I don't think so completely.
I don't think so.
I actually think that people have come to realize one thing, that you are not safe.
No, you're not.
Being isolated.
If you thought you were?
Yeah, because you see, mostly the politics of the day is between political parties, politicians, and some media people who would actually always be in the maze. You are isolated in a private room doing private business. But if you can no longer get your LCs cleared and there are difficulties and you don't know whether your money is going to come in and all of that is happening to you, immediately you start to sense that you are being threatened.
Yeah.
Now, going forward, it is in the absolute interest of all participants, especially that group with higher stakes in the economy, to know that if we stay back and get to this corner again, we might not be able to influence as much.
Yeah.
So why don't we all, you might not be actively involved, but consistently, you come to check up on what's happening. Guys, we need to take our steps back carefully. We need to take the next moves carefully. Let's be sure we don't do things back. We will be hearing many of these people doing what some people did in the 70s and the 80s. The academics who spent quality time writing, even under pseudonyms and all of that. They were engaged not because they really loved to do so. Yeah. They were engaged because they felt the survival of the community and their very selves were equally threatened. Yeah. So that's what I think is going to go forward into it. Some may relax, because some persuasions become on board.
But I
think that a greater majority of the people
will still be active.
Yeah.
Because I'm on the individual bondholders forum. I'm part of the forum, and I'm on the platform. And you get this, the activism that is there. It's absolutely the sort of brain power that you see, the conversations. It's been an education for me. I don't see how the group. In that group currently it's inching towards 400,000. Yeah,
imagine.
Right? 400,000. The registration alone on the website, it's 400,000 almost. That's just one group. We have the Martin Kwebu's group as well, right? We haven't quantified the numbers yet, but they're also near 1,000. So you have almost more than 500,000 people, right? Possibly in the region of 700,000. That's a significant force. Elections have been lost with far less numbers.
40,000, really.
In this country. I don't see how that group. I think, there's something about when you taste power and your very survival gets threatened. If you survive that experience, it changes your outlook on life. And before now, many of that group thought, we're safe.
Yeah.
Now they know they aren't.
Yeah.
And now they know if they don't continue this momentum somehow, and we know, look, our history has taught us, IMF, we've been going to IMF on average of 5 years every time, right?
Yes.
And this, we've not been to this crisis like this before. Projection is going to take 15 years. So, now the new proposals, the bonds will mature in 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you say in 5 years when it matures and you take your money, you check out again?
And wait for another crisis.
And
more serious crisis.
I doubt very much that.
There's actually a group that is going to do that, and I'll explain. There's a group that is going to say, all I want is my money. When I get my money, if I have investment in this country, that's when I'm concerned. If I do not, and there are people who are not going to leave the country and say, I'm not going to invest in this country.
Yeah, of course.
In fact,
people who take their money and run away.
In fact, I know people between June and July sent a lot of money out of this country.
Yeah.
Even as late as October, when the city was depreciating against the dollar and people didn't understand, there were people who were buying properties in other countries, particularly in the Middle East, in Dubai, Qatar, and all of that. They were buying properties, they were transferring their funds into those countries, millions of dollars. Ghanaians.
Yeah.
Now, the reason they started doing that, let's be very honest, if I had money around that time, and I saw what was happening in this country, I'm going to buy bonds.
No, of course.
I probably will buy a property right here in Ghana and wait.
That's true.
Okay. So it's very simple. Look, some of these persons don't have properties in Ghana. They don't have investments in Ghana. That for those who have investments, and somebody called me the last time, and he told me how much he has in Ghana. And he says, if he gets his money, he's not going to do that. He has millions of dollars invested in government bonds.
No, but there's one thing taking your money out, and there's another thing becoming active and becoming engaged. So you can have your money out,
Evans,
and still be a force in terms of the engagement.
The other point is this. We want to engage. Also, I mean, part of the reason why we would engage also is the fact that we see ourselves as part of the process and as part of this country.
So the solution.
And as part of the solution. For those who do not see themselves as part of the process. Now, why am I making that point? There are people who have properties outside the country that are intending to come back and settle in Ghana. But also those who say, I want to leave.
Yeah.
And never come back.
Yeah, definitely not big group.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. The consequence of what we are going through is that it will convince people, if they were not convinced before, some people that jump ship. I mean, before now, there are people who have already given up. A lot of middle class people who've checked out. Not very prominent middle class people who used to be very active in the space of engagement and civil activism, who I've spoken to recently and said they swear they will never engage again because Ghana is not worth dying for, and that there's nothing they can do anymore, and so they just chill, and that kind of thing. And there are many people like that, and it'll be more like that after this crisis, right? But I also think that this crisis will also produce more activists.
It will. I met an activist on Sunday also, so I was sitting with other people elsewhere. That he came to pass by. We were talking about being politics and other things. Can you believe the order he said? Hey, Sunday afternoon politics. They checked a long time ago. Please, they should get ice cream. He's not going to eat ice cream in one corner and enjoy himself. As for the rest of the engagements, what he has done is now he's a part-time Ghanaian. The only time he talk about Ghana is when he's sitting on Facebook in New York, and that's
when
the only.
Listen to this. Ragamuffin says, "I'm in the UK, and I know many friends that have lost trust in the Ghana banks and trying to close their accounts in Ghana."
Trying. So which one there'll be more by the time this.
Now the point is that, see, I mean, and we've had this conversation before today. If you store of value, I don't want to be that kind of bad person, but you see, even if you have dollars, you don't even want to go and put it in the bank because you don't know what will happen.
No, there's
tomorrow.
a lot of fear and uncertainty.
There's a lot of fear and uncertainty within the system.
An insurance person told me that save. Even an insurance company wants to buy save where they can put money in.
Yeah.
Today they couldn't find some at the major places that they look for them, but even when they roam in Mokola, it was still not available like
finished.
that.
I mean, that thing is
today I run a current account. And, the current accounts that I run, look at that. The banks actually charge me for,
keeping your money.
For keeping my money. They're charging me.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the money that they keep they use it to do business. But they are charging me. They're not giving me anything. But do I go and buy treasury bills? I'm waiting for this exchange to the amended memorandum.
But the treasury bills is safe now.
Who told you? The last one that we are dealing with. They said, but they may.
Yeah, individual bondholders, as of the 6th of December, individual bondholders were perhaps one of the safest group in this country.
Yes.
As of the 6th,
as of being safe.
As of the 6th, when we started this conversation about domestic debt exchange,
we like it like
yes, they were just in a very safe.
You see, at the time when individual bondholders were safe, you didn't hear the middle class. It was not until 24th. That government sneaked it in.
Yeah, in fact, the middle class, a lot of them were still chilling.
Yeah. And then they were ahead of Christmas.
It was in a new year.
No, they realized that.
When they had come back from holiday.
Remember our caution on the last week of Christmas?
Yes.
We were cautioning people about how they're going to do New Year and it's going to be difficult, so you have to spend bright and all of that. Come and see the reaction. Why? You can't destroy our peace. Please leave us to enjoy. I mean, clearly, the people are giving indications that they're going to enjoy.
The day we had that conversation, I mean, this conversation that went very viral. That man who spoke and all of that. There were people even at the time that got onto the show. They wanted to speak. Yeah. But we couldn't get them on. But these were persons that we had tried earlier to speak to them.
Yes.
And they declined.
Now they want to talk.
And the program had ended. But they said, tomorrow, every time I'm willing to talk. Because they had been affected.
And the money is
I don't have bombs.
You just act as fast.
Oh yes, I don't have that.
You guys are nearly.
I mean, but I say it mustn't happen to anybody. In fact, if it happened, I'd have asked myself, where do I go from here? Why? I mean, how do I start?
A country that's pushing an investment culture. A country that spent almost 3 decades building a system of financial markets, which rarely was not something people believed in.
Yeah.
A country that has reached the apogee of financial markets and will be believed to be in the sub-region, some of the best institutions in the sub-region.
Yeah.
Falling from that grace to grass, it's a very difficult thing. And we should not dismiss the impact. And that's actually a conversation that...
It's a whole new conversation we need to have. Let's read something. Let's wrap up. Kent Mensah, he says, Acquah M is watching. I don't know who's Acquah M.
I don't know. That's what Kofi Mensah was putting that...
Alexis Ampofo says, state capture. That ink in the sheets, I read in the Japa, is being carefully implemented. The GATT introduction into the bank discussion, gold for oil, etc. Well, you can see the lights are blinking. Don't worry, we are still here. We can even do it in the dark. No problem at all.
The lights are...
The lights are back. The lights are back. Yeah. Yes. The GATT is what? Introduction into banks discussion. Gold. What's that? The energy sector wasn't successful. Before we realized the Mafiasco have captured everything in Ghana. Okay, so this is I think the point that Mama Ayaga was making. That's possibly what he's emphasizing. Alexis, well, thank you.
It's something we have to talk about one of these days.
Yeah. John Baptist says, I like your show. Thank you, John. Of course, you talk about Ragamuffin already. Then Nana, says, what's that? Areho.
Oh, okay.
Areho. Okay. Anyway, guys. Areho. No, listen, thank you for tuning in. The government has his hands, in our pockets. They don't want to take it out. And I really like Professor Bokwin the way he puts it. He says, what have you seen a barber who is barbering everybody's hair, but his hair always remains afro?
Yeah, that's some barbers like they've done Rasta.
Enjoy the rest of your day.